Suffering Podcast.
Events will happen in our lives that are unexplained and confusing to what we know is true. Coincidence, chance, and serendipitous events are concepts that are far removed from the human understanding. Often there's nothing to do but to raise your hands, incapable of any reasonable comprehension. Even though that deep dive into physical and scientific foundations will occasionally come across events that are beyond our knowledge. Then the unexplained leaves a giant hole in the concrete truth we once anchored ourselves to. The phrase, "How did this happen?" resonates inside our heads for the rest of our lives. Not everything is clear-cut or black and white. Often phenomena surrounding our everyday lives must be approached with one truth that we don't know as much as we think we do. Until science catches up, some mysteries have to be taken on faith. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Felice, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and now you can join. And of course, follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to when we're up to it. This episode's going to be an interesting one because I am a seeker. I am a seeker of healing. No matter what it is, I just, off air, I said if somebody told me the path to healing was for me to stick my head up my ass, I would start stretching tomorrow. And tonight we're going to talk about the suffering of a spiritual awakening with Alexis Abate. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And I even pronounce your name right. And I don't do well with the Italian names. I just don't. I butcher them.
On point.
Before we get into anything, let's do a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as police. We certainly don't trust anybody as podcasters, but we do trust the guys over there at Toyota Hackensack. So if you're looking for a car, do me a favor. Go to toyotahackensack.com. They'll help you out, and also tell them that the Suffering Podcast sent you. So, Alexis, you watched a couple episodes. We take a question from our audience every week. This question comes from Slayer Tango 5. What is your biggest regret? That's a pretty basic question, and I think we all have regrets. So do you want to share one of them with us?
Doubting myself and playing myself small.
Playing yourself small. You need to go into a little bit more detail with that one.
I feel like there comes a point in our lives where you start to doubt yourself, what you're capable of. And I think back of all these times I made myself not be seen, not express, not say what I wanted to say. And there's times I look back and I'm like, wow, if I was just my authentic self and didn't hold back and actually shared what I wanted to share, I feel like some things would have turned out differently for me.
So you're talking more of like along the lines of like an imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. You know, you start to doubt your abilities. You start to listen to those little voices in the back of your head saying, I'm not good enough. But what you realize later in life is that you were more than good enough. You were not the imposter that you built yourself up to be. And the only person that sees you as an imposter is you.
And also, trying to fit in is sometimes the worst things that we could do.
There's no box in the world that I want to fit in ever. I think the hardest thing for me was failure. Okay, so I used to look at failure as one of those things that I would never tell anybody. I would never share with anybody in the world. And my biggest regret is not relishing those failures. Because later in life, what I found is those failures, those things that I thought held me back or set me back, they were the biggest gifts in the world. Because I learned more from my failures. I learned 10 times more from my failures than I ever have from my victories. Victories are great, and nobody needs to train on how to win. It's something that's innate in you, and it's born into you. It's instinctual. But learning how to fail properly and pulling the lessons from that stuff. I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and I brought up Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison obviously famously invented the light bulb. But people don't know, or a lot of people don't know, that he came up with 1,000 other ways that he failed on inventing the light bulb. And when Thomas Edison was asked, now Thomas Edison wasn't the greatest guy in the world, but when he was asked later in life, he goes, all I did was think of 1,000 ways that I didn't invent the light bulb. So my biggest regret is not relishing the failures early on in my life. Now I celebrate them. I don't want to fail. Nobody wants to fail, but I'm not afraid of them.
I love that you said that. I was saying that the other day too. I'm like, no one succeeds by doing everything correctly. If anything, you have to look back and be like, wow, I failed 1,000 ways. I figured out 1,000 ways that didn't work.
And then, when one door closes and you think that's a failure, all that does is force you to go around the back and check the back door and see if the back door is open.
I completely agree.
Yeah. So, Slayer Tango 5, I love these social media names. Slayer Tango 5, thank you for sending that question in. And keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get them on the air. So, we were connected by our good friend Nick Ricchetti, who is taking the journey down into the therapeutic field, and I think he's very well suited for it. And I'm happy that he chose that path because he had it a little tough. He had a I don't want to say a bad beat, and I don't think Nick would say it's a bad beat. But so you talk about failure. You look at Nick's path, and that could be seen as a complete failure. But what it did was put him in the position where he is now, where he may actually make a greater impact on others' lives. So, I'm very grateful for my friends. I'm very grateful for my circle because they bring me people such as yourself. So, Alexis, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you grew up, where you grew up?
So I grew up in Central Jersey, small town. I always knew I wanted to be a therapist. Like ever since I was 15 years old, I just something inside me said, you're going to be a therapist.
Were you one of those people that everybody talked to and told their stuff?
Yeah, I would say so. And I was a social butterfly. You ask anyone from home, they'd be like, oh, Alexis, she's all over the place. And I still am.
Were you a shore girl?
Yes, I was.
Of course. So shore girl usually correlates with a vowel at the end of the name. I'm sorry, I'm generalizing, so I apologize. But that's what it is. What town was it?
Middlesex.
Oh, Middlesex. Okay, I know Middlesex very well. And where was your location of pleasure during the shore? Because everybody has their spot.
Down the shore?
Yeah.
Belmar.
Belmar. Okay, Belmar.
I was a Belmar girl once upon a time.
Belmar is a very nice place. It's a little bit more upscale than Seaside. Nicer beaches, cleaner boardwalk, which isn't saying much because Seaside's disgusting. So, at 15, what was it about the field of therapy that sort of piqued your interest?
I always had this intuition inside me that I knew. I almost felt what other people were feeling, and I didn't know what it was until later down the road. But I was always able to relate to people, and I was really good at just connecting people. And I was always that person that I always felt bad if someone was left out because I knew how that felt. So I would never want to make anyone feel left out. And I just remember saying, I'm going to go be a therapist. And then I said, and I'm going to go to West Virginia University. And I did exactly that. And I always, for the most part, have done everything I said I was going to do. I've accomplished it.
What did you want to do? Go to the college where there is absolutely nothing around it?
Well, if I remember, because I grew up near Rutgers, and I remember that Rutgers and West Virginia would play each other. And so I remember looking to West Virginia, and I'm like, wow, this school seems so cool. And then I ended up going on it was called the Appalachian Service Project with my French church when I was in high school. So over the summer, we'd go down to the Appalachian Mountains and we'd fix up homes. And one of the first trips was to West Virginia, being in the mountains. And I'm like, wow, I love it here. And our pit stop was in Morgantown, West Virginia, where the college was. And I was like, I'm 100% coming here. I ended up actually going to Montclair State my freshman year. And then I ended up transferring to West Virginia. And I was like, I'm home. And I got that I'm home feeling as soon as I went on campus.
People in West Virginia, a little bit different.
There's a lot of New York and Jersey people there. You'd be surprised.
I had a buddy, Carrie, who lived in West Virginia, and when he mowed his lawn, he carried a handgun. And I was like, why are you carrying a handgun? He goes, because there's snakes in the grass. And he would ride his lawnmower and shoot snakes. That's what he did. We did ride in the back of pickup trucks, I will say that. And then you have the Whitakers that live out there. So the Whitakers, you ever heard of the Whitakers? No, are those like the Appalachian Service? They are incredibly inbred. All right, so it's... The Appalachian people, is that what you're saying? Well, the Whitakers are a family, and they were highlighted on Soft White Underbelly. That's what made the Soft White Underbelly channel the channel that it is. They are incredibly inbred, and they look it. So that's what everybody sees when they see West Virginia, because it is incredibly rural. Okay, and I know I'm generalizing the people of West Virginia. My buddy Carrie, listen, I love them dearly. but they're also the lower economic scale. But when you step out of Jersey, and especially coming from New Jersey, where everything is so materialistic, you know, oh, I had a friend of mine come up from, I think it was Mississippi, and I took him to a New Jersey wedding.
Oh yeah, we're known for our weddings.
Okay, so you go to a New Jersey wedding, and it's an event. It's like it's something that people just read about in books. And then you go to another part of the country in a wedding, and it's in a VFW hall, and it's in a church, and it's, you know, that's where
So different.
it's, you know, big ZD for food, if you get food at all. BYOB, you know, it's you bring a 30-pack of Schlitz malt liquor in there. And that's the culture shock. When you went down to West Virginia, being a Jersey girl, was that, you know, was a little bit of culture shock?
So I ended up joining a sorority, and there was certain girls from the area that it was a little bit like everything that they would wear would be a little bit different, how they would say certain words. And I stuck out like a sore thumb just by opening my mouth. People are like, oh, you're definitely from like New York or New Jersey. So I definitely felt that culture shock at first, but then again, it felt like a melting pot of people.
It's a big enough university where it happens. And one of the things I do know about West Virginia University is when they have a football game, the whole state converges.
Because they don't have any professional teams in the area. So you're either going to Pittsburgh, you're a fan of the Steelers, or the Pens for hockey. But other than that,
tailgating, RVs, and pickup trucks. That's it.
And
that's
it was the best time ever.
Yeah, because, you know, when you travel outside of New Jersey, let's be quite honest. People in New Jersey can be dicks, right? But you travel outside of New Jersey, and people are genuinely nice. I spent a lot of time in Tennessee, and the people in Tennessee are wonderful. Like they're so nice that you sort of look at them side-eyed, being from where we are, going, "What do you want from me? You trying to scam me? You trying to do something? What are you trying to do?" And that's the culture shock. But now, you know, I've traveled so much that, you know, people are just nice. People are, and I try to bring that home. So what when you finally came back to New Jersey, and I don't know what brought you back here, did you bring a little bit of that West Virginia charm?
Yeah, and I had a hard time adjusting. So I ended up going straight into grad school. So I moved back home. And how do you go from being around people all the time to nothing? All your friends, you think that you're going to pick up where you left off from high school, but everyone's in different parts of their lives. Some people stayed away. So I just remember like going back home, being in my childhood bedroom, and I'm like, whoa, this is weird. Like, who am I now? I'm no longer this girl from Jersey in the sorority, right? Like, I had to let that identity go. And going into grad school, it's so different. You're just working, you're going to school, you're doing your hours. And so it was like a really hard transition for me at first. But
Where'd you go to grad school?
Kane University.
Kane, okay. I know one of the football coaches. Well, he used to be the football coach there. And you went right in. What was your area of study as undergrad?
Psychology.
And then when you went
Clinical mental health counseling.
So you just went full bore.
Been straight in, yep.
Now, once you got into grad school and once you're post-grad school, you had to do your hours and you sit in front of your first client. There's this thing that happens to people that work their whole lives towards going in one direction. They oftentimes get in the field that they so wanted to be in, and they realize this: oh shit, I don't like this. What was it like in front of your first patient?
Imposter syndrome. Again, playing myself small. I'm like, oh, do I actually know this? Who's going to take me seriously? I'm young. I had beach blonde hair at the time. I'm like, wow, I feel like I have to prove myself even more. But now looking back, I'm like, I knew a lot, but now I know way more. And what's funny is, if you asked me years ago when I was just starting in this field, what I wanted to specialize in, it wouldn't be what I'm doing now. I can tell you that much.
And people are going to have to stay tuned to find out what you're doing now. So there's always a throat punch, whatever profession you go into. You go into auto mechanics, and you get this big job sitting up on the lift going, damn, I don't even know what to do. And I can always imagine that. I've sat in enough therapy sessions that I should have my LCSW, but I've sat in enough therapy sessions where, you know, you let something out that they might not have any experience with, and you see the look on the therapist's face going, oh shit, this is not what I signed up for. What, did you have one of those? Are you ready to enhance your skills and provide the best care to those who need it the most? I'm Kevin Donaldson.
I'm Sherry Alsip. Our trauma-informed training is here to help, and we've been traveling across the country delivering this essential need to departments and organizations of every size, shape, and makeup.
We come to you with on-site training so you don't have to worry about travel or scheduling conflicts.
This isn't just a class, it's an interactive experience. You'll learn directly from subject matter experts who teach from a victim's point of view, putting you in the shoes of those who have experienced trauma.
This approach allows you to understand trauma on a deeper level and to better serve the individuals you work with.
We'll guide you through new interview techniques that prioritize a victim-centered approach, ensuring safety and empathy in every conversation.
And for those of you in law enforcement or other fields, our training includes post-credits, giving you the extra added value and recognition for your commitment to professional growth.
We offer references upon request to show just how effective our training can be.
Don't miss the opportunity to improve your understanding of trauma and make a real difference in the lives of those you serve. Get in touch with us today by going to sherryalsip.com and let us bring trauma-informed training to your organization.
Together, we can make a lasting impact.
Yeah, there was some situations where I'm like, how can I help this person? I'm like, wow, this is like way beyond what I even know. But sometimes you realize people are just there to feel heard and feel seen and share their story. And in a way, sometimes words won't even matter. No matter what I say, it's not going to take away someone's pain. Again, it's just being there to support someone the best way you know how.
You're not like a surgeon. So therapy is a very different type of practice than any other medical field, because a surgeon will go in there and you have an appendix burst or something like that. You go in there, you cut it out, you cut out the appendix, you sew them back up, and everything's done. There's a beginning, middle, and end. With therapy, it's not a clear-cut path like that. It's not as black and white as people say it is.
It's not. And I think also, too, there's no right way to heal. There's not like a universal pill or universal treatment for somebody. Like, everything is so person-centered. So what may work for you may not work for the next person. So for me, again, I'm able to, especially being like face-to-face with someone or even through a computer screen, I'm able to kind of sense through like the frequency of their voice, their tone, their body language, eye contact, kind of what they're experiencing, and walk them through it the best way I know how.
Zoom therapy is beyond me. I will not go to a therapist that does solely Zoom.
I used to be against it until...
Well, COVID hit, so you had to.
But then I realized people are so busy, and I think that's another reason why people get so burnt out all the time, is we're on the go nonstop. So to squeeze a therapy session in for some people, just like the commute, it makes it so much easier for people.
That's the one thing, and I'm not being argumentative to you, but I believe, this is my own personal belief, and you can tell me on many things I am batshit crazy. But my thing is if you're not able to take an hour a week out of your time to go and work on yourself and be the best you possibly can be, there's time. There's always time. There's never a week where you can't take 1 hour. What's it, 164 hours in a week, something like that? Or whatever it is. Don't check my math on that one, please. You can't squeeze one of those hours out to do something better for yourself. You make time. I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning so I can go to the gym. So the people who say they don't have time, I have to question their commitment. I really do.
I think what's happening now is a lot of therapists, too, with the way rent is for just an office, it just makes more sense to be telehealth, but everyone's different.
I just never have gotten the same benefit. I've done those Zoom sessions. I just have never gotten the same benefit as sitting in front of a person. Same way we're sitting here, because I want that therapist to feel either my pain, my joy, whatever emotion is flowing out of me. Because one of the things that I realized between two human beings, and it's kind of what we're going to sit here and talk about, is everybody has a certain energy that they exude out of their body. Some people are very standoffish. Some people are overly boisterous. But everybody has an energy, and if you're not able, I can't read energy through a screen. This is why I don't do Zoom podcasts here, because I can't feel what you're feeling. So you practice, but just backstepping for a minute, you practice for a while. And did you see some things in practicing? You finished your grad school that you could improve upon, you could tweak, you could maybe give people a little bit more benefit?
I'm not afraid to challenge someone. I always say, like, I hold up a mirror. So if you're saying, I want to be different, I want to do this, but the next week you're coming back and you're saying, like, "Oh, I haven't done anything," I'm going to confront you on it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask you really hard questions. And that's what I like about also my style is I can read through a screen. I can tell by your eye contact, the way you're positioning. And again, just like the tone and frequency of your voice, I could pick up on that. Even over the phone, I could tell, hey, you don't sound like you're in a good mood. Hey, the way you're wording this compared to last week, I'm able to pick up on that. If it's some type of therapy like EMDR, some people I would say you probably want in person for that. I'm not familiar with those techniques. I'm not specialized in that. So I don't know how it works in a therapy session, but I would assume in person would be a lot more beneficial than over the screen.
Yeah, I don't think that's one you can do over Zoom.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I've never heard of anybody that did that over Zoom. But what is it? So do you think it's more internal in you that you have this ability to sympathize or empathize with them? Some sort of, people are born with that stuff. All right, they're born. It's like having a gift, and not everybody's born with it. Some people are the worst in the world at reading people. They'll read them completely wrong, and then other people, you're spot on.
I believe that we all have that ability. It's just awakening to that.
How did you awaken yours, or do you just always had it?
Well, again, I feel like I was always able to feel what other people are feeling or just have like this inner knowing. A lot of people call it gut intuition. I do believe that everyone is able or has a story about when their gut has alerted them of either being in danger or they just had this feeling of like, I shouldn't go here, or I just have to call this person and check in on them, and their gut ended up being correct. So that was something I've always just personally had. And
People
I think
ignore it.
they do.
That's
And
the problem.
I ignored it for a long time. Again, going back, downplaying. But as I go through this journey that I'm currently on, I feel like the gifts just keep coming in.
When you
become
open
stronger.
when you open your mind to something, it seems to flow a little bit easier in there. So when was the first time that you started to put this in play into your therapy session? This style that you developed, this spiritual awakening.
Okay, so my awakening started years ago after a breakup.
That's always a good catalyst for it.
So after this breakup, and I knew something about it was different. I just felt different. And I just kept saying, like, I felt like I died inside. And it wasn't even being dramatic, right? Like, I just knew in my soul, like, something about this was different. And it was. So I think it was a few months later, I'm Googling, like, how to get over a breakup. And something comes up on, like, twin flames, karmic soul ties, partners. And there was a quote in there talking about how your karmic partner is a mirror for all the wounds that you need to heal. And they describe it as like two broken puzzle pieces that fit perfectly together. Two broken puzzle pieces. So think about it that way. When people get into relationships many times and you're not healed, it's like fire and fire. It becomes explosive, right? So for me, I'm like, wow, this has to be something. And I kept doing research. I'm like, where's the research for this, like to prove these theories? And I end up coming across some creator talking about Dolores Cannon and Dr. Michael Newton, who I believe is also in my field. And they did hypnosis therapy. And so what that is that you get put in a meditative state. You're able to tap into the subconscious, access memories from your higher self. And both Dolores and Dr. Michael Newton had similar research and in their books, very similar to what they were saying and finding out from their patients that were going under hypnosis therapy. And they were saying how, you, and people are going to disagree with this, this is very taboo. Your soul makes contracts with other souls before come down to earth, saying how we're going to teach each other lessons. And again, we're going to learn from one another. And that's where you hear like, oh, that person's my soul mate, right? We say things like, I feel like I've known you in every lifetime, or, we just met, but I feel like I've known you my entire life. Like we have this inner feeling of returning home to each other. So I'm like, I just kept playing on that, and I kept reading and researching on that. And I'm like, this stuff has to be real. And that's when I started having more of that awakening. I started to read more, look at the research, dive into it. And then I started to get sick. And I remember saying to a friend, I was like, I feel like this experience, this stress is causing me to shut down. On a cellular level, my lymph nodes were the size of hockey pucks. I was getting MRIs, ultrasounds. Doctors tell me my labs were fine, and I was not fine. Like clearly swollen.
Was this psychosomatic reaction?
I think what happened is trauma gets stored in the body, and also anger. And I was feeling a lot of anger, resentment. And I would put that away and engage in my work. Like everything was fine and just keep going, just like many people do. And now knowing what I know now, it was definitely, again, things I was not processing. That energy has to go somewhere. So I ended up getting diagnosed with Epstein-Barr virus. And then I think something else isn't right with my body. I started to get bloated, having gut issues. I'm like, maybe it's my birth control. And I did research on birth control and the interconnection between female depression. So I knew all these things. I ended up getting my birth control, got off of it after 14 years, which is crazy. Thought I was healing. Ended up getting even sicker than I was before, to the point where I'm like, God, I don't care what this is. I am ready for this healing journey. Let me get diagnosed with something. I ended up going to a functional medicine doctor. First day, she goes, this sounds like mold toxicity. Take a test. I ended up testing positive for 5 different types of mold.
Wow.
And throughout that journey, it clicked to me. What is mold? It's a fungus, a bacteria that grows in dark, damp places. And I'm thinking, this is a metaphor for everything I was going through.
Have you ever heard of the invisible string theory?
Yes.
All right. So I recently came to know what the invisible string theory is. And it's such a beautiful thing, right? So we're connected, and the universe connects us to other people all across the country, all across the globe, by this invisible string, and they're brought into your life, whether they're friends, whether they're relationships. One philosophy comes from South Korea, the other one comes from Japan. The South Korean one is we are connected through everybody, and you're just following that string your whole life. The Japanese one says if you do enough bad stuff, karma will sever that string, and you will never meet that person who was supposed to bring something into your life. So it has a little bit of negative things to it, but I always love, and when you talk about that, I'm still hearing that invisible string theory, because I'm a big believer in that. You are connected to people throughout this planet, people you never met, and the minute you meet them, all these coincidences will start popping up. So that relationship that you lost, maybe it just wasn't right. Maybe it was the wrong timing. Maybe it's something for the future.
I believe it was a lesson. Relationships are teachers, but also not being able to process those emotions from what happened. I truly believe it manifested inside my body as the mold toxicity. And going back to that, it's almost like I needed that breakup, that experience, that relationship to get sick, go through this new healing journey to get to where I am today.
Well, you got to do advertisements for Suffering Podcast, because that's all it's about. Suffering is a gift. That suffering is that you went through, as hard as it was a gift, because what it did was it pushed you into the direction of your professional life that you needed to go. You needed to go through that stuff in order to find all this.
And that's good karma, because karma could be good or bad. And I always say it's a wheel, right? What goes up comes down and goes back around again. But again, when you're in a dark place, you always say you have to learn to be the light for yourself. The light is consciousness. It's bringing everything that's down here up here. You go into a dark room, you got to turn on a light to see clearly. So it's enlightenment.
So you got enlightened through this horrible affliction, which I'm sure crippled you for quite some time, put you down. But then when you're down in that, you're in that low place, and you're doing the self-reflection stuff, and you come to realize that oh, okay, this is what, did you have a moment where you're like, oh, okay, I get it. It's pointing me in a direction where I need to go.
This whole journey,
Yeah.
everything. I look back and I'm like, everything is so spiritual and symbolic for where I'm going and still going, and even making connections. And that's why, like, everything really is a mirror. The people that you attract, people that you're friends with. And I do believe we are born into certain situations, right? As horrible as they may seem, sometimes our soul needs to learn the hard way. It's duality. I can't know what a healthy relationship is like unless I have one that maybe wasn't so healthy. You need that scale, right? You need that duality.
You need the yin yang. That's what you need. So the whole concept, everybody knows the yin yang, everybody gets it tattooed, but very few people know what it is. It's light and dark. All right. You have to know the dark in order to know the light, because every piece of paper has a back and it has a front. That's what makes it a piece. That's what makes objects real. And there's that balance between the light and the dark. They feed off of each other and they make you appreciate one another, because I'll put it to you this way. If your life was all roses and you were wealthy and you had everything that you want, guess what? You're still going to be screwed up because you're not going to know the other side. If you know the other side, watch people who grow up poor and they accumulate wealth. They protect that wealth. And then their children who knew nothing but wealth squander it. And it happens all too often. So you always have to have the back to the front. So I'm right in line with what you're saying. So how did you put that into play into your practice?
So now I realize we're all going through something, but based off my experience, realizing, okay, go through this breakup, go through this hard time.
First of all, do you
angry.
want to give this guy's name? Because we could blast him on. No, don't do that. Don't do that.
You know what? It's so funny because looking back, I used to be like, so angry, couldn't even talk about the experience. Now I'm like, it wasn't even about the relationship. That was just a teacher. And again, I needed my foundation to collapse. And that's what's called an ego death. So going back to what I said before, it felt like I died. Well, that's because essentially my soul did have to die. Everything I thought I wanted had to be stripped from me. That Band-Aid had to be ripped off so I could rebuild. And that's what we call in spiritual terms a tower moment, right? So think about like a building like collapsing. Your foundation, your structure, everything is to the ground, right? Maybe you lose a job, maybe you get divorced. Again, maybe your health is in jeopardy. How are you going to rebuild your foundation?
Well, you have to be down. Your foundation has to be raised to the ground. I just watched something. Who was it? Steve Harvey was just talking about before he was on TV and who he is now. He was living in his car, and he's praying to God. He's like, "Please, God, just help me out." And God kept saying, "A little bit longer, a little bit longer." Year 2, same thing. God, just please help me. I'm living in my car. Just a little bit. God kept saying, "A little bit longer, a little bit longer." Year 3, he's ready. He's at the bottom. He's ready to give it all up. He's ready just to crawl back home and pray for mercy. And then he gets this gig in New York City. It was Showtime at the Apollo. Problem is he only had I think he had like $100 to his name or something like that. He can't get to New York. That very same day, a club in Florida where he was calls him and says, "We got a gig for you. We're paying $300. And he was so funny, they called him back the next night and he got paid extra. And now all of a sudden he had enough money to go to New York, and Showtime at the Apollo happened, and Steve Harvey is Steve Harvey. So it's only when you are at the bottom, and you don't even know when you think you're at the bottom. You're not at the bottom. But when you're at the bottom, there's nowhere to go but up.
Exactly true. And I had to learn how to trust myself and be comfortable with who I was, rebuild confidence, rebuild that strength. So what ended up happening was, merge myself into my career. Again, as I'm connecting, like what's happening, like trying to process everything. I'm like, everything really is just like a giant metaphor at the end of the day. And I see it with how the people I work with, my clients too, they could say something and I'm like, you ever think it could be that? Like, I'll give you an example. One of my clients, they ended up moving into a new home and they were still like suppressing all their emotions, and their pipes in their basement ended up exploding and flooding everywhere. And I was like, I feel like that just represents what's happening inside of you. And they go, Alexis, I literally said that out loud. That's exactly how I feel right now. Everything just has to come out and break down.
Well, you're trying to control everything, right? You have to relent control because control is an illusion. You're trying to control every aspect of your life. You're trying to make this happen and make this happen. Sometimes you just have to say, the universe is going to let it happen how it's going to happen.
Yeah, and that was, that's funny you say that. So when I'm now getting like sick and I'm like, all right, what is mold toxicity? I have to put myself through like a mini med school. I'm like trying to educate myself on that. I have to detox. I have to change my complete diet. I had to move homes. So I ended up looking for an apartment. So I put everything in the back of my car and I was like, all right, I'm going to go live with my grandmother up in North Jersey and I'm going to go start apartment searching. And I had this little inner voice for like months prior saying, just like start looking at apartments, right? So I ended up moving into a new place in the span of like 3 months. And I'm like, now I feel like, how do I heal my nervous system? Because everything that I went through prior, I feel like finally caught up with me. And again, I was just so sick. I don't even know how I was able to do sessions at some point because I was in like adrenal fatigue. I was so tired, like the symptoms I was having, the list goes on. I talk about it on my page all the time, but I don't know how I was able to get that strength to go through. I never gave my body a break. But again, working with certain doctors and meeting people along my journey, I'm like, oh, this makes sense why I'm on this path. Like there's a mind, body, soul connection. I started reading how your emotions can make you sick. And I truly believe that's also what happened from not processing what went on in the past. Because some people think they're healed, but they're actually distracted.
A lot of people do that. They make themselves busy when they're in pain. I did that. I'm going to tell you right now, I did that. I taught myself when I couldn't work and I was in my worst of the worst times. I wasn't allowed to work. I tried to teach myself every possible thing, crazy stuff too. And what did it do? It was just something to get my mind off of that because, an idle mind does the devil's work. All right, I'm a firm believer in that. You have to, now, here's the big problem. When you become focused on something, say you get a hobby to try to distract yourself or you get a second job or a podcast to try to distract yourself, you're not healing anything. You're just pushing the stuff back down further. All right. One of the things through this podcast is I've realized that I even started this podcast for probably the wrong reasons. I did. I started it for the wrong reasons. It was just something fun to do. It was something to distract myself. What I found in it was so much more. I get to speak to people like you who have different outlooks on how to heal, on different theories on what's working and what's not working. And like I told you, I will do anything. I would do anything in order to try to heal. But I was also lying to myself. I was also lying to myself. I should have put my focus into making myself better. It happened longer than it should have. Let's put it that way. So how did you end up healing yourself?
So a few things. So I was working with a functional medicine doctor, but also at that time, I found my teacher, my mentor now. And so I'm part of a meditation group and we practice meditating, but we also learn about like ancient wisdom and going back to ancestral ways with healing. And to me, again, with my practice, now I'm realizing there's a spiritual meaning for everything. Like even one of our lessons was, think about it this way, people that are so negative and they say like, I can't stand this person. You're going to manifest a feet problem. Your feet, your subconscious is going to be like, all right, we can't stand. What's going to happen? You're going to end up having your leg and foot. Something's going to happen to it. So everything we say, as we think, we create. So also learning how to change negative thoughts, how I subconsciously even speak to myself and teaching that to people. Think about how hard we are, how negative we are all the time as humans.
Like Tom out there says he can't get a suntan. Obviously, he's correct. So the more negative you speak to yourself, the more that's actually going to become true. And
it's poison to the body.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy when somebody is self-deprecating. And again, going back to Tom, he is one of the more self-deprecating people. And I just got on him the other day on a text. He said something that I didn't like, and I said, don't you ever say that again. If you say that again, you're going to be recovering from bruises while you're self-deprecating yourself. Because I don't like that. I don't like that. Nobody sees him like that. I certainly don't see him the way he presented himself, and I don't want him to see himself that way. So do you take your own experiences and move them into your patients?
I'll never tell someone what to believe in or how to heal, but I do say using like that mind, body, soul modality, because also what I'm learning too is we go by like the seasons of nature. And so this is also something new for me, how the calendar wheel of the year, right? So we go into winter, for example. That's a death and rebirth process. And I personally love fall and winter, right? And I think it's a good time because you get to go within. And winter, think about what happens in nature. Everything dies off. You get like a clean slate before the spring comes in. You start planting your seeds for everything you want to see grow. The summer is peak vitality, right? And think about what happens in the summer. Everyone's out and about. Then we go into fall harvest, right? It's about reaping the rewards of all the hard work you put in. And then the winter's for rest again. So as humans too, we have to go with the cycles of nature.
And it's in our modern culture.
Well, we go back to ancestral ways. So, I'm learning to do that for myself. And I think what I've also learned is that that's real healing to me. Healed nervous system. How do you do that, especially in society where everything is go, 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 nonstop? People are working multiple jobs, social media, this. You have to go here. You have to go there. You have to be all these things. Calming my nervous system is still probably one of the hardest things to do. How do you just sit there and meditate and not think of anything? That takes practice.
It does. It takes practice, but the ancients knew this better. All right, we think we're so smart today. We think we have all this technology and we're becoming as dumb as we've ever been because the ancients knew this stuff. So, depending on what religion you are, on December 25th, what is sitting in the middle of your living room? On Christmas Day, what is sitting there surrounded by presents?
Christmas tree.
All right, you tell me where a Christmas tree was in the manger, because that's supposed to be the birth of Jesus Christ, right? Tell me where a Christmas tree was in the manger. Wasn't there. What does it have to do with it? Well, let me tell you the origins of it, and this is why the ancients had it right. When Constantine turned the Roman Empire over to Christianity, they had to figure out a way to merge some of the pagan the pagan rituals into Christianity in order to make it more palatable to the masses. Well, one of them was there was a festival that celebrated a tree. And it's funny how Christmas is very similar or very close to December 21st when the equinox happens.
Imbolc.
What?
Is it Imbolc?
I'm not sure.
I think that's the holiday for the winter equinox, right? It's the darkest day of the year.
It's the shortest day of the year, and after December 21st, the days start getting longer and longer and longer. So the fir tree or an evergreen tree never dies, and now you have a chance to go into that. So they merged those things together because the ancients knew. They knew that's why you're supposed to wake up when the sun comes up and go to bed when the sun goes down. It's very simple.
And I'm also big on, this is going to be controversial, but the astrology too. What's happening?
That's the one thing I can't get into. I'm sorry.
No, I'm pretty into it. And that's like how, I guess, deep the rabbit hole, but that's all ancient medicine. That's all what they used to use.
The ancients, I understand. It seems like every girl who's looking for a man says, "Oh, what's your sign?" Like that used to be a thing with the guys in the 70s in order to try to get women, but now it's like, "Oh, you're this, so you must be compatible with this." I haven't seen it yet. I haven't witnessed it yet. I'm not saying it's not real, but I haven't had personal experience with it. So, until I get personal experience, I'm going to start making fun of it. No.
And you can make fun of it all you want. I'll use it to my benefit.
So tell me how that would play. Listen, I know the pyramids are perfectly aligned with Orion's belt and all that stuff. The ancients knew a lot about astrology. You have Stonehenge that's aligned in some sort of astrological function. So they knew a lot about astrology, but I'm trying to think about how what's the connection to the human through astrology? Is it, so everybody says, well, your sign is Taurus, whatever it may be. Well, that means you're this, 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 and this. Sometimes it's true, or is it what we're telling ourselves is true?
Everything's an energy, right? And everything's a vibrational frequency. So that's essentially what it is. And again, I would never push this on anyone I was working.
No, it's very interesting, and I'm.
But for me, for example, I use it to my benefit. Not saying I'm so rigid where, again, I believe in this too. Destiny and free will, right? I always say it's like taking like the parkway or the turnpike. You're going to get to where you need to be through either location, but there's going to be obstacles along either way. So you can't let just the astrology stop you from doing something. I want to preference that.
No, I think it's about melting things together to see what works, because nobody's got it right yet. But if you can it's kind of like putting a puzzle together, right? And a really difficult puzzle where one piece looks like it fits there, but it really doesn't. You got to turn it a certain way and then it fits in, right? So how do you melt those two together? How do you melt your practice in with your spiritual beliefs?
Mm-hmm. I always check with the person, like, is this something that you would like to use? Most of the time, yes, because I also advertise myself as someone that incorporates spirituality and those types of sciences. So again, for example, Mercury retrograde, right? People make jokes. So, Gatorades in the microwave, whatever it may be. But that's the planet of communication, Mercury. It's the planet of travel. It's also ruled by Wednesday. So when it's retrograde, things are going backwards. Think of the word retro, reflect, revisit, rethink, all the re's. It's about slowing down before going forward. So that's why a lot of times I'm like, oh, Mercury retrograde, there's going to be a lot of traffic and accidents on the highway, miscommunication, technology is going to be all spazzy, maybe issues with technology. Things may not go so well. So it's a good reminder for me to slow down during those times. And that's how I'll use it.
That's and do you suggest that to your patients?
If they would like to use it. But think about it too. Sometimes we do have to go back before springing forward.
I think it's essential that if your patients know that this could possibly be of a benefit, and anybody who's really anxious to heal, they're going to try anything. They're going to try whatever it is, and certain things you give them may not work for them.
But the key is letting them also piece it together themselves. And I always say, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a dietitian, right?
Yet, I see that.
See?
I see that in your future. Yet.
But how can you get in tune with your mind, body, and soul? Remember, your gut is always speaking to you, and we always ignore that. I always ask them, how can you make meaning out of something? When you're going through a really hard time, how are you going to make that into your hero's journey? And I always say the alchemist journey, because I always say whatever life throws at me, good or bad, I'm going to make something out of it to my benefit. It's going to work.
You have to.
If I knew back then what I know now, my healing would have been so much different. I don't think it would have been this prolonged. I don't think I would have had it so dragged out. But again, getting out of that, I don't want to say even victim mentality, but learned helplessness. How do you get out of a hard time? And so the tools I have now benefit me more than anything. Well, even dream analysis. Now my dreams, like I write down all my dreams. They all connect too with what's happening present day.
You brought up something via text when we were prepping for the show, and you would watch the interview on Soft White Underbelly, and there's a part in that where I talk about breaking what's called the proverbial 25-foot rule. And when at the time, the 25-foot rule for police, I think it's up to 30, but the 25-foot rule is you never go near somebody with an edged weapon within 25 feet, because within 25 feet, technically you should be able to get your gun out if they ever charge you. This particular woman had a knife, had a small child with her, and I broke the 25-foot rule. And foolishly, I did it. I caught crap for it too, but foolishly I did it. Thankfully, it worked out. But you brought up a really interesting analysis with that, and I want to share that with everybody.
My brain, I automatically just think deeper than most people, right? I read between the lines, and I pick up on things that not the everyday person would understand. And I do believe it's through my journey, because I don't believe things happen, it's not coincidence, it's synchronicity. And if you learn how people talk and hear their stories, there's always patterns and there's always synchronicities in somebody's stories or their lives. So when you were saying, what was it? When you had to break that 25-foot rule to go sit with the person and comfort them, that's when the breakthrough happened for that other person. And then when you were in the doctor's office.
Oh, that one I never put together.
And when you were in the doctor's office, that doctor had to hug you and maybe break that doctor-patient barrier, right? You don't touch the patient unless whatever. So to me, I'm like, wow, after both rules were broken, per se, that's when the real healing happened, when people just let their guard down and stop playing, thinking, what do I have to do? I have to do everything correctly. And they were just human and authentic.
I never put those two incidents together, and they happened 10 years apart. With me sitting in the doctor's office and that incident with Mason on the bed.
And that clicked to me because I also keep saying that I personally feel that we're seeing society's pillars break down, right? That tower moment for everyone. We're all going through like this collective awakening where what used to work no longer works. And we're all in this process of figuring out what now works, right?
We've been lied to for so long.
Right. So everything's being torn down. People think the world's on fire, but it's to get to a place of, all right, we have to restructure and figure out what works now compared to what no longer works. Used to work. That's the same thing with healing. Your coping skills that worked last year, they may not work this year. And you have to keep adding and adding. So,
well, those people who don't believe that there's validity into what you say, okay, people who are disbelievers, I'll put it to you this way, and I'll put an outside metaphor in there, and that's the food pyramid. I was raised that you need to eat a diet that's heavily laden in grains, 60%, and at the top, you eat very little fat because fat's bad for you. You can't eat cholesterol because it'll give you high cholesterol. And when the Food and Drug Administration put out the food pyramid, they knew that it was wrong. Their own people told them that was wrong, but they put it out anyway because they were getting paid off by the food industry. Now let's fast forward 50 years in the future, 60 years in the future, and what are we finding out? We were absolutely being lied to. Your diet should not be heavy laden in grains. You should be eating good, healthy fats. Cholesterol is good because it delivers nutrition to your brain. So that's stuff that we were, I hate this term, but I'm going to use it. The stuff that we were indoctrinated with is a bunch of bull.
And that's what's happening. We're all going through this, like I say, it's like a 9-year year of the snake. Like we're shedding old skin. We're all going through this purge, whether you believe in any of this or not. I think we can all feel it within our friend groups, what we used to like. We're all becoming different versions of ourselves. And maybe it's the stage of life that we're all at, but we have to tear down everything per se. And again, become who we're actually meant to be. We're going to a place of everyone's moving into authenticity. There's so much fake out there that we're all done with it. What's real?
It's because everybody got addicted to comfort.
And you don't grow within comfort. And that's why some people will always feel stagnant because, again, fear and anxiety, same thing. When you're anxious, I go, what are you fearing?
Don't work out. You're going to get to how you look, how you want to look. I don't know anybody that wants to be overweight. Okay, they are overweight, and I'm not body shaming anybody. Well, maybe I do. I body shame Tom all the time. But nobody wants to be overweight. Everybody wants to look good in a pair of jeans. Everybody wants to have their clothes fit.
You want to
right.
hear my theory?
Sure.
When you become overweight, especially out of nowhere, I go, are you afraid of being seen? Because that's keeping you grounded.
That's a good point. That's a good. Listen, I'm a huge believer that being unhealthy is a psychosomatic problem.
Yeah, well, you can't eat McDonald's and then expect to feel like $1 million, right? Nothing wrong with moderation, everything moderation, but at the same time,
McDonald's is good. That's the thing. Tastes good, fills you up.
But it's wants versus needs.
Yeah, I have a tough time with this stuff because if they just step out of their comfort zone, they're missing a lot of great things in this world. And this is something that you're talking about. Like if you were to stay on the traditional path of therapy, you would be missing all of these things because traditional therapy, I don't know a lot of therapists.
Well, I was told that, going through my clinical training, it was, you don't do the talking. You just sit there, neutral facial expression. That would never work for me. And I find just being my authentic self, like almost like how I'm talking to you, like, hey, did it ever come to you that maybe this could be the reason why? People don't know what they don't know.
They're coming to you to get some sort of guidance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what you're delivering. I've been to enough bad therapists to know what they're like, and they do not give guidance. They sort of, well, what do you think about that?
And again, it's not, I don't even want to say it's advice. I always say I plant the seed, right? What we talk about, we're just planting seeds. You decide if you want to water it. And I almost look at it as like life is like a garden, right?
You gotta
Don't
dig
chase.
it.
You
gotta
track.
dig
You have
it.
to take care of it. You have to clear things out, take the weeds out. Sometimes you need help on how to do that.
Well, you plant that seed. So when you plant a seed, you have to put it deep in the dirt. All right.
You
Deep
have to
where
go
nobody's
down
seen it.
into the unconscious, and that's again going back to when you're at rock bottom, right? When you feel like you're in a really bad place, you have to go. How did you get here? Go super down, because we're so used to also suppressing and band-aiding things. Just moving forward, being distracted. All right, it'll get better.
Yeah.
It
When you
doesn't get better until you do that true inner work, the true inner healing. And that's going to be painful at first, right? Kind of revisiting or being real to what's actually happening.
take that person that patient you had who had the broken pipes. So you know how do you fix a leaky pipe in the short term? You take a tire inner tube, you cut a little strip out, you wrap it around, and you wrap it with electrical tape, and that will stop it for a while. That will stop it for a while. But in order to truly fix it, you have to cut out that leaky part, put a connection in there, solder, and there's a little bit of pain involved in that because you could burn your house down, but that's what you have to do to truly fix it. Otherwise, it's just a Band-Aid. It's just a temporary fix. And this world has been filled with too many temporary fixes. That's why I'm happy there's people like you who are willing to really dig deep and get to the root of the problem and maybe even truly fix things.
And it's also getting in tune with your own body. And that's another thing, again, like why I think following the seasons of nature and going back to those ancestral ways is so good. And having faith, I think, is super important. And what I learned too on this journey is finding faith again, meditating, talking to your spirit guides, ancestors, with God, and just staying there, because that changes everything.
Well, so that's an interesting point, right? So people, I hear you talk a lot about spirituality and astrology and all those things. And a lot of people will say, oh, okay, well, she's walking away from faith. And that'll turn a lot of people off, especially people of faith. But what people don't realize is all these things intermingle. There's no one right there. Listen, my faith is rock solid, but I can move those things that you're talking about into my faith. When I meditate, guess what? I feel closer to God.
And that's another thing too. And you know what I say? Why do we have our best thoughts in the shower? Seriously, because that's when we're finally tuning everything out. And even what I learned through my teachings is that water's consciousness. It represents intuition, flow. It's cleansing.
It's connection.
It's purifying.
You're connecting to one of the elements of the earth. Okay?
Why do you think we love the beach so much?
The harder I work, manual labor, say I have to dig a ditch, the harder I work, the closer I feel to peace. Isn't that funny? I know some of the most peaceful men in the world who work their ass off all day. And then I know some of the most stressed out people who make millions of dollars. They go in an Armani suit to work every single day because there's no connection. And that speaks to the type of therapy that you do. So why don't you tell me, those patients of yours who are willing to try this stuff, who are willing to get into this stuff, why don't you tell me some of the benefits that they've had, some of the success stories?
They feel so much more confident and like they truly understand who they are. It's, again, you're going through a hard time. Like, again, that ego death of like, I'm here for a reason. I'm in therapy for a reason, whether it's situational. It's truly understanding, why did I go through this breakup? Why did I go through this job loss? Why don't I have friends anymore? And that's also what's going to happen on your awakening, is that everything in your life is going to change. It's an adjustment, but you have to let it flow.
Sometimes you got to cut that
We
cancer
outgrow
out.
things. Yeah. And again, I always say, when you raise your vibration here, not everyone's going to be able to see where you are from down here. Not everyone wants to see what you're saying, where you're looking. And it's not my job to wake people up. And I always say that. I'm not here to wake people up. It's just, if you choose to listen to this or work with me or join my groups, you'll see the magic that happens through reconnecting with community, but also reconnecting with yourself. And a lot of people are afraid of being by themselves. And that's why they become codependent on jobs and relationships, because they don't know who they truly are at like a soul level. They know who other people want them to be. So they think, okay, that's why I have to be. My parents wanted me to be that. Society told me I have to be this, that, and that. But who are you really without all that conditioning, with all those labels, all those titles?
There's points in your life, if you become focused enough and you start listening to the stuff that's around you, it'll tell you the way to go.
That's, I think, what people start learning with me. And I've had people that have worked with me for a handful of years now. They come in and out when they need me. And I think that's the biggest compliment. People keep returning when they need me on their journey. But they learn to look at the world differently, like real learning. And even I'm adjunct professor of psychology, and my psych students will tell you it's a different type of classroom. I call it real learning.
So there's a moment in my life, and I'm pretty sure I've never shared this on any show or anything like that. There's a moment in my life, and I've talked about the moment where I walk out into the woods and I stay in the woods for 3 days with a bottle of water. Never slept, sat up against a tree. It was breezy, and the top of the trees were rustling. I'm in a wooded area. Top of the trees were rustling. There's nobody around for miles. And people are going to think I'm crazy when I hear this, but those trees were talking to me. And if you shut down just a hair and you open your ears enough and you listen and you're trying to figure out what the trees are saying to you, because the leaves rustling. So it's that quiet of the leaves rustling. They're talking to you. They're trying to tell you something. And I heard that for days and days. And that's what got me out of my funk and had me walk out, because otherwise I probably would have done something awful in there. But don't ever discount the things around you telling you what's going on, because nature's pretty smart. It's been around for a long time.
Healing, nature, everything, I've never realized the importance of nature either until being on this journey. And what you were just saying, I'm sure for the average person that may sound crazy, right? I always say thank God for my friends, because some of them just like talking about the spirituality, like, oh, we choose our families, we choose, we meet people for a reason, like how you're saying, like that red string theory, like hypnosis therapy. I'm surprised they didn't try to put me into the psychiatric hospital, right? But I knew what I was experiencing. I wasn't crazy. I knew this was like real truth. I'm a truth seeker. I want the honest truth. When people say, oh, I like this. Well, why do you like this? How did you get here? Did you actually like it? Or did your parents kind of like force that into you? Do you actually believe what tradition says? Do you follow tradition? Do you want to? Or is that just all you know?
I think what you're tapping into is absolutely the wave of the future. I'm dead serious.
I've always been ahead of my time, especially with, again, 5 years ago, I was talking about birth control and depression, saying we need to start as therapists working with medical professionals, especially with female hormones. Like, we need to be knowledgeable about this. And my research did get accepted at one of the biggest conferences in my field, but I stopped pursuing it. And if I just stuck with it, right? If I just kept advocating and talking about that, now you see all this research on it, which, again, not here to change anyone's opinions on anything, but if I just kept speaking about it, and that's why I said I'm not going to stop with how mind, body, soul, faith, spirituality, God, this is all included in your healing. And again, nervous system regulation, go, go, go. The more you try to make things work that aren't working, what's going to happen? Things are going to fall apart. You're going to be out of alignment. And going back to the mind, body, soul thing, my gut, I'll become very inflamed when I know I'm not in the right environment, when something is not right for me. My body will start having physical symptoms. And now I'm like, something's off. Don't know what it is. I have to connect it. Maybe it's the person I'm talking to. Maybe I ate something. My body will signal it to me. And I think that's what's important, is learning what's happening on the outside and the inside. It's all interconnected, that gut-brain axis.
We're so afraid of what we can't see, touch, taste, smell, or hear. We are so afraid of it. We're afraid of things we can't empirically prove with science. Well, guess what? There's a lot of stuff out there we don't understand. There's a lot of stuff out there that we can't fathom because our brains are too small to fathom.
But if you have all this research, like the books I was reading by, Dolores Cannon, Dr. Michael Newton, and Dr. Brian Weiss, how many more of these research articles do we need to be like, right now we have a hypothesis here, like this has to be something? And we also hear stories about this from people all over the world saying similar things, right? Or how little kids will be like, Mommy, I picked you to be my mom or daddy, I chose you. Like there's videos of kids saying that like all over the internet.
Well, there's nobody that was ever celebrated for being the 500th person to do the same thing over and over again. And often the people who are up front, such as yourself, who are leading the charge in these different ways, you're going to be mocked. You're going to be made fun of. You're going to be thought of as a kook. But guess what? Those are the people that change the world.
But it's also a different type of science. And like you said, we have felt things. You could walk into a room and you could feel when there's tension between two people. You could feel that energy. You don't have to prove it. There's nothing to prove. You could tell when two people are not.
Kids are excellent at that.
They're pure. They're not conditioned.
Well, I say
Not
this,
yet.
when I was a kid, I grew up in Atlantic City area around all the gangsters, right? Nicky Scarfo ran Atlantic City, ran the Philly mob. He was the boss. And we saw these guys as kids. We didn't know what they did, but we knew they were serious guys. We knew they were men of respect. We knew that we had to treat them a certain way. And they never did it. They weren't mean to us. They never did a damn thing to us. We weren't reading newspapers or what was going on, but we knew they were serious. That's 100%
the energy.
certain.
And yes, we could prove that through like MRIs. I always say, you believe in Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, MRIs, ultrasound. Do you believe in like all these like radio frequencies, infrared saunas, right? Like we have the red light therapy. We have the proof that everything is energy. Energy healing is a real thing. And I know like off camera, we spoke about, Reiki a little bit too. And there's different types of energy healing. But at the end of the day, you can feel people's emotions if you really tap in, and you can't prove it. And that's, one thing that I became very sensitive to is I can like walk in a room and start picking up on, all right, this person might be feeling this way or that way, but I've learned those are not my emotions to carry.
I certainly apologize for you having to walk in this room.
No, but it's true though. But you could walk in, you could tell when someone's a little nervous, and you could feel it to a certain extent. But even being in law enforcement, I'm sure you could walk into a situation feeling like something's different about this.
Yep, that's
Or you can look at someone and be like, I don't know what it is, and I can't prove it, right? Can't prove it, but something's different.
off.
Something's off. And you can just tell someone's energy. Oh, I don't like them. Why? Something about them. So we know it's there. Why do we try to deny it? And I think that's the thing is there's more to us as humans than what we learn in school. And so to me, I always say I do the real learning, like Earth is school, but you don't learn, you repeat. So if you keep doing something over and over again, you're going to get the same results until you get off that wheel, right? That hamster wheel, do the inner work, do the shadow work, bring everything to consciousness, understand. That's where the breakthrough happens. Make those connections. Everything is symbolic. Everything is a metaphor. At least I believe. Maybe you choose not to believe. But until you have your own experience, you're not going to believe it.
No, then all of a sudden it becomes truth.
But that's why the people I work with are going through that. Like I call it like the ego death. They're like shedding their old skin and they need guidance or community. And that's the thing. You outgrow community. Sometimes you outgrow your friends that you grew up with, or you outgrow your work environment. You outgrow your boss or someone that you've been with, your partner, for no reason. People fall out of love all the time. If you're not growing together, you're growing apart.
If you're not growing, you're dying. So, Alexis, we're coming to the end of this thing. Where can my audience find you?
You can find me on my Instagram, Psych Lectures, PSYCHLEXTURES.
Definitely, there'll be a lower third right next to you. We're going to put that in our show notes. So if you want to reach out to Alexis, please follow her on her Instagram and just go into the notes below this video. You'll see it there. So, Alexis, like I said, we are coming to the end of this thing here, and you've had this journey. You knew what you wanted to do as a kid, but there was a lot of different roadblocks in the way, and definitely it awakened you in a certain way to get you to the point where you are right now, and there's suffering involved in there. And I always believe suffering has a lesson. Every piece of suffering has a lesson. So from where you started, this idealistic person who wanted to be a therapist, to going into what some would say voodoo medicine, what do you think that journey and that suffering involved in it has taught you?
To trust that when everything's falling apart, it's actually being built together. Your old life is going to cost you your new life. Where you're going, you can't look back. You have to keep looking forward. I know it sounds really cliche, but
no, it's true.
Once I realized everything I thought I wanted to be and accepted, all right, I have to let this journey take me where it's going, stay true to myself, stay authentic. Everything I'm talking about, I never thought I'd be talking about this publicly. Even last year, I was afraid to post on, I was still posting on a private story about my spiritual awakening. And now I'm talking about it on a podcast. A lot can happen in a year. But when you stay true to yourself, that's when real alignment happens. I was never going to be in alignment with my true happiness. This is happiness, being authentic. And if you want to be happy, you need to be authentic. So,
Well, I look forward to seeing where you're going to go. And every time you have a victory, please share it with us so we can share it out to the rest of the world, because I think that this is the way. This is way. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of a Spiritual Awakening with Alexis Abate. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Don't sell yourself small. Listen to your gut. We often need, I think everybody needs an ego death. It's time to try to fix problems, to truly fix problems. Be unafraid of what you can do, what can be done. But this is the most important one. And I kind of paraphrase what you just said. When you believe you're falling apart, what you're actually doing is falling into place. And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount on your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Clapper, LinkedIn, OnlyFans. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson, and of course, follow the Suffering Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.